Cicada 3301. The Internet's most mind-bending puzzle. Back in January 2012, someone posted a weird image on 4chan. Not the usual weird, we're talking next-level cryptic. The message was simple: we are looking for highly intelligent individuals. Then it challenged people to find a hidden message within the image. And just like that, the Internet lost its mind. What followed was possibly the most elaborate puzzle hunt ever created. This wasn't your grandma's crossword. We're talking military-grade encryption, ancient texts, obscure philosophy references, and steganography, hiding messages inside images. People had to decode Mayan numerals, Caesar ciphers, and messages hidden in digital noise. But here's where it got really wild. The puzzle didn't stay online. Solvers discovered coordinates leading to physical locations around the world. Posters appeared on telephone poles in over a dozen cities, from Warsaw to Paris to Sydney. Each poster contained QR codes with more puzzles. It was like geocaching, designed by someone with a PhD in making your brain hurt. The whole thing felt massive, coordinated, professional. Naturally, conspiracy theories exploded everywhere. Was it the CIA recruiting hackers, the NSA looking for code breakers, some shadowy Illuminati organization, aliens testing human intelligence before making contact? Thousands of people worked together online, creating wikis and forums to crack each layer. Only a handful made it to the end. Those lucky few received personal messages congratulating them and inviting them to something. The exact details stayed murky because winners were sworn to secrecy. Cicada 3301 came back in 2013 and 2014 with new puzzles, each as brutally difficult as the last. So what was it really? Turns out no aliens, no shadow government. It was an anonymous group genuinely looking for talented cryptographers and problem solvers. Think of it as the world's most intense job interview. They wanted people who could think creatively, work collaboratively, and handle seriously complex challenges. The organization behind it remained anonymous, though some speculate it was related to privacy advocacy or cybersecurity work. A few people claimed to know the creators, but nothing concrete ever surfaced. What made Cicada 3301 legendary wasn't just the difficulty, it was the craftsmanship. Whoever designed these puzzles put insane effort into creating something beautiful, mysterious, and intellectually punishing. They proved you could still create genuine mystery in the Internet age. Even solved, it remains one of the coolest things the Internet has ever produced. Way better than another cat video, anyway. Max Headroom, broadcast hijacking. November 22nd, 1987. Chicago. If you were watching TV that night, you might have witnessed one of the strangest moments in broadcast history. 2 television stations got hijacked by someone wearing a Max Headroom mask, that creepy computer-generated character from the 80s who looked like he was having a permanent electrical malfunction. The whole thing played out like a fever dream. First, the intruder interrupted WGN Sports News for about 15 seconds. Just static, then this masked figure swaying in front of a rotating background. No audio, then it cut back to the confused sportscaster, who basically shrugged it off, weird but brief. But they weren't done. Later that night, during a Doctor Who episode on PBS, the hijacker came back, this time with audio. For 90 full seconds, viewers watched this person in a Max Headroom mask spout complete nonsense. They hummed the theme song, rambled about nerds and Coca-Cola, held up a Pepsi can. Then someone off-screen spanked them with a fly swatter while they moaned weirdly. Then, gone, back to the doctor. The Internet didn't really exist yet, So people just sat there wondering if they'd hallucinated the whole thing. The FCC launched an investigation. The FBI got involved. This was serious. Hijacking broadcast signals was a federal crime. Whoever pulled this off had technical knowledge and guts. They'd somehow overridden the station's signals without getting caught. For decades, it remained unsolved. No arrests, no confessions. Just one of broadcasting's greatest mysteries, and a weird cultural footnote that lived on through VHS recordings, and later, YouTube. Eventually, the consensus emerged. It was almost certainly tech hobbyists who understood broadcast systems well enough to pull off a sophisticated prank. In the 80s, broadcast security was surprisingly weak if you knew what you were doing. Years later, internet sleuths claimed to have identified the culprits, supposedly brothers from the Chicago area, with the technical skills and weird sense of humor to match. Some Reddit threads and forums pointed fingers, but nothing concrete ever surfaced. No one was ever officially caught or prosecuted. The statute of limitations ran out long ago. Whoever did it got away with the most legendary TV prank in history. They interrupted Doctor Who to get spanked with a fly swatter while wearing a rubber mask, traumatized a generation of viewers, and vanished into legend. Honestly, kind of respect the commitment. WebDriver Torso. In 2013, a YouTube channel called WebDriver Torso appeared and started doing something deeply weird. It uploaded videos, lots of them, thousands actually. Each one was about 11 seconds long and showed red and blue rectangles sliding around the screen while making beeping noises. No context, no explanation, just rectangles and beeps, over and over and over. Naturally, the internet lost its mind. When something this strange and repetitive appears online with zero explanation, people's imaginations go wild. The theories poured in. Maybe it was a numbers station, those mysterious shortwave radio broadcasts that spies supposedly use. Could be an elaborate ARG puzzle waiting to be decoded. Alien contact seemed plausible to some. Secret government communications? Obviously. A few people were convinced it was coordinates or encrypted messages hidden in the patterns. The channel kept uploading relentlessly. Multiple videos per day. The counter kept climbing. Hundreds became thousands. Nobody claimed responsibility. Nobody explained anything. The whole thing had this eerie, mechanical quality that made it feel genuinely mysterious. Who would create thousands of nearly identical videos of colored rectangles, and why? Reddit detectives got to work. People analyzed the patterns, looking for hidden codes. They examined the audio for secret messages. Some noticed the videos were uploaded from different locations, which only deepened the mystery. Was this a coordinated effort? A global conspiracy? Then someone noticed something. The channel had accidentally uploaded a video showing a street view of the Eiffel Tower. That seemed important. People started connecting dots. The timing of uploads, the technical nature of the content, the global locations. Finally, Google confirmed it. The answer was magnificently boring. WebDriver Torso was theirs. They were using it to test YouTube's video quality across different devices, resolutions, and compression algorithms. The rectangles and beeps were test patterns. The thousands of uploads were automated quality checks running constantly across their global infrastructure. That was it. No spies, no aliens, no secret codes. Just Google making sure your cat videos played properly on every device. The most mundane explanation imaginable for something that looked so mysterious. The internet collectively groaned. We'd been analyzing test patterns like they were the Rosetta Stone. But honestly, that's kind of perfect. Sometimes the creepiest mysteries have the most boring solutions. Google later embraced the meme status, even uploading a few joke videos acknowledging the whole thing. The channel still exists, still uploading its rectangle tests, now with everyone in on the joke. The Montauk Monster. Summer 2008. Montauk, New York. Someone discovered a corpse on the beach, and the photos that hit the internet were genuinely unsettling. This thing looked wrong. Hairless, bloated, with a weird elongated face that resembled a beak more than anything mammalian. The body was grotesque and alien-looking, like something that crawled out of the ocean from depths humans weren't supposed to see. The photos went viral instantly. People started theorizing. Montauk is right near Plum Island, which houses an animal disease research center. Naturally, conspiracy theories exploded. Was this a failed government experiment, some hybrid creature that escaped from the labs? A mutation caused by toxic waste or radiation? Maybe a new species entirely, something science hadn't documented yet. The timing felt almost too perfect. Plum Island already had a mysterious reputation. Stories of strange experiments and classified research had circulated for years. Now here was physical evidence of something genuinely bizarre washing up right next door. The Montauk Monster became international news. Cryptozoology enthusiasts had a field day. Even mainstream media picked it up. The creature's appearance fueled the speculation. That weird beak thing, the complete absence of fur, the strange proportions. It didn't look like any common animal. People who saw the photos couldn't immediately place what they were looking at, which made it feel genuinely mysterious. But then, marine biologists and wildlife experts actually looked at it. Their response? "Oh, that's a raccoon." Wait, what? A raccoon? Those masked trash pandas that knock over garbage cans? How could that be a raccoon? Turns out, decomposition does wild things to animal corpses, especially in water. When raccoons decompose and lose their fur, their skulls look dramatically different. The snout elongates and flattens in a way that appears beak-like. The distinctive facial markings disappear. Add significant bloating, some weird camera angles, and the power of suggestion, and you've got yourself a monster. Multiple experts confirmed it. The bone structure, body size, and what remained of identifiable features all matched a raccoon. Not even a particularly large raccoon, just a regular trash panda that had the misfortune of dying, decomposing in seawater, and becoming internet famous. The explanation was disappointingly mundane. No government experiments, no mutations, no new species, just the natural process of decay transforming something familiar into something strange-looking. But that's less exciting than beach mutant from secret lab. So the legend persists. Even now, some people prefer the monster story. Can't really blame them. Reality is often less fun than the mystery. Polybius arcade game. The legend of Polybius sounds like the perfect creepypasta. In 1981, a mysterious arcade game supposedly appeared in a few Portland, Oregon suburbs. The game was incredibly addictive. Kids lined up to play it. But something was wrong. Players reported intense psychological effects, nightmares, amnesia. Some kids supposedly stopped playing video games entirely, traumatized by whatever they'd experienced. And here's the kicker. Men in black would periodically visit the arcade cabinets, not to collect quarters, but to extract data from the machines. Then, just weeks after appearing, the game vanished completely. No explanation, no trace. The story has everything. Government mind control experiments, subliminal messaging, Cold War paranoia, a sinister purpose hiding behind entertainment. It tapped into real 80s anxieties about video games and their effects on children. The name Polybius even references an ancient Greek historian, adding a layer of mysterious credibility. For years, people searched for evidence. gaming historians hunted for the ROM file, the game's code. Collectors looked for cabinet remains. Researchers interviewed arcade owners from 1981 Portland. Surely someone would remember this game that caused such chaos, right? They found nothing. Absolutely nothing. No ROM, no cabinet, no arcade operator who remembered it, no kids who actually played it, no contemporary news reports from 1981. Zero physical evidence. For a game that supposedly caused such a sensation, it left no footprint whatsoever. Eventually, researchers traced the origin. The entire story appeared to originate from internet forums in the early 2000s, particularly from a website called coinop.org. Someone submitted the story there, and it took on a life of its own. The tale spread, got embellished, and became gaming's most famous urban legend. But why did people believe it? Because it felt plausible. The 80s actually did have arcade game controversies. The game Tempest legitimately caused motion sickness in some players. There were moral panics about video games causing violence or addiction. The government did conduct psychological experiments during the Cold War. Polybius took these real elements and mixed them into a compelling fiction. Some versions of the story claim it was inspired by real games like Tempest or government interest in using games for testing. Others suggest it's purely invented. Either way, extensive investigation by gaming historians has concluded Polybius, as described in the legend, never existed. No mind control arcade game, no men in black collecting data, no traumatized Portland kids. Just a really well-crafted story that people wanted to believe. It's become a cultural touchstone anyway, appearing in TV shows and inspiring actual game developers to create their own Polybius games. Sometimes the best mysteries are the ones we make up ourselves. The Ghost of Kyiv. When Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, the world watched in real time on social media. Among the tragedy and chaos, one story captured everyone's imagination: the Ghost of Kyiv. This unknown fighter pilot was supposedly single-handedly dominating the skies, shooting down Russian aircraft left and right. Videos circulated, people shared artwork. The legend grew by the hour. 6 kills in one day, 10 kills. The numbers kept climbing. Here was a modern ace pilot, a lone hero defending his homeland against overwhelming odds. It was exactly what people needed to hear during such dark times. Social media exploded with support. The ghost became a symbol of Ukrainian resistance. Anonymous, faceless, unstoppable. Fighter jet footage got shared millions of times, supposedly showing this legendary pilot in action. News outlets picked it up. The story went global. But something felt off. The footage was often from different conflicts, different years, even video games. Aviation experts started asking questions. The Ukrainian Air Force made vague statements that neither confirmed nor denied the story. That should have been a red flag. Eventually, Ukrainian officials came clean. The Ghost of Kyiv wasn't real. Not as described, anyway. There was no single pilot racking up impossible kill counts. The story was essentially a morale booster, propaganda in the most literal sense. During wartime, hope matters. Giving people something to believe in, even if it's embellished or invented, can be strategically valuable. Some versions suggest the legend was composite, based on several pilots' accomplishments rolled into one fictional character. Others say it emerged organically from social media, and Ukrainian authorities just didn't correct it immediately because it served a purpose. Either way, the Ghost of Kyiv was mythology, not history. Effective mythology that rallied spirits and international support, but mythology nonetheless. In war, sometimes the story matters as much as the facts. Feel fantastic. Robo. There's a YouTube video that's haunted the internet for years. A mannequin-like woman with a frozen smile, dead eyes, and jerky movements sits in a room singing, "I feel fantastic, hey hey hey," in a robotic voice. Everything about it screams wrong. The synthetic voice, the uncanny valley face, the way she moves like someone's controlling her limbs with strings. The setting, just a bare room with this thing performing for no one. People couldn't stop watching and simultaneously couldn't handle watching. The comments filled with theories. Was this a hostage situation? Someone's bizarre cry for help? The mannequin looked disturbingly realistic in some shots. What if it wasn't a mannequin at all? What if someone was dressed up, forced to perform? The whole vibe felt deeply sinister, like stumbling onto something you weren't supposed to see. Viewers analyzed every frame. The background showed glimpses of what looked like a normal house, which somehow made it creepier. Who creates this in their home? And why? The video's age was unclear. The quality suggested it was older, maybe from the early internet days, which added to the mystery. Had this been sitting online for years, some dark secret hiding in plain sight? Wild theories proliferated. Serial killer trophy video, AI experiment gone wrong, alien attempting to understand humans, evidence of android development. Each theory more unsettling than the last. The video's title gave nothing away. No context anywhere. Just this thing, singing about feeling fantastic while looking like the opposite of fantastic. Then someone found the creator. Turns out it was an art and music project by a guy experimenting with synthesized voices and homemade animatronics. He'd built the mannequin himself, programmed the movements, and created the song as an experiment in uncanny valley aesthetics, deliberately making something that would unsettle people. It worked, maybe too well. The creator never intended it to become this viral horror phenomenon. It was just weird art, but taken out of context, stripped of explanation, and presented to an internet audience primed for creepypasta, it transformed into nightmare fuel. The mannequin was just plastic and motors. The song was just experimental music. No hostages, no serial killers, no androids. Just an artist making something intentionally uncomfortable and succeeding beyond his wildest expectations. Though honestly, knowing the truth doesn't make the video much less creepy. That frozen smile still hits different. The I Am Sophie YouTube girl. Around 2017, a YouTube channel appeared featuring a teenage girl named Sophie. Beautiful house, wealthy lifestyle, everything seemingly perfect. Then the videos started getting weird. Sophie's behavior became increasingly erratic. She seemed distressed, confused, talking to the camera like she was losing grip on reality. Her perfect life appeared to be unraveling in real time. Viewers were hooked and horrified. Was this real? Should someone call authorities? The production quality was decent but felt raw enough to be authentic. Sophie seemed genuinely troubled. The videos showed her questioning her own memories, finding strange objects, experiencing what looked like genuine psychological breaks. Comments filled with concerned people trying to help, trying to figure out what was happening. The mystery deepened with each upload. Strange symbols appeared. The timeline got confusing. Sophie mentioned things that didn't add up. People started investigating her background, trying to verify if she was a real missing person or in danger. True crime communities got involved. Was this a documentary? A cry for help? Something darker? Then the reveal came. I Am Sophie was a professional ARG, an alternate reality game. Specifically, it was a web series created as a commentary on social media, identity, and artificial intelligence. The whole thing was scripted, acted, and produced by a team. Sophie wasn't a real person in danger. She was a character in an elaborate narrative that blurred the line between fiction and reality. Some viewers felt betrayed. Others appreciated the artistry. The series had successfully fooled thousands of people because it tapped into something real, our parasocial relationships with online personalities and our willingness to believe what we see on social media. It was basically Black Mirror as a YouTube channel. The production value was genuinely impressive. The acting was convincing enough that even skeptical viewers had doubts, and the marketing was brilliant, letting it spread organically without immediately revealing its fictional nature, created genuine mystery and engagement. Looking back, it's an interesting case study in online storytelling and how easily we can be drawn into narratives that feel authentic. The internet makes it increasingly hard to distinguish between real distress and performed distress, between documentary and fiction. I Am Sophie exploited that ambiguity masterfully, creating something that was equal parts art project, social experiment, and creepy internet mystery. The Blue Whale Game. Few internet phenomena have caused more panic than the Blue Whale Challenge. According to reports that surfaced around 2016, this was a social media game that manipulated vulnerable teenagers through a series of 50 daily challenges. The tasks supposedly escalated from harmless activities to self-harm, culminating in the final challenge, suicide. The game allegedly spread across Russia, then globally, with administrators targeting depressed teens and psychologically manipulating them into compliance. News outlets worldwide ran with the story. Parents panicked. Schools sent warnings. The narrative was terrifying. Predators using social media to literally program children to kill themselves. Reports claimed dozens, even hundreds of deaths linked to the challenge. Blue whale images became symbols of this digital death cult. It felt like a new kind of evil that the internet had unleashed. Except it wasn't quite real. Not in the way it was presented, anyway. Investigations revealed a much more complicated picture. Yes, a Russian teenager named Philip Budeikin had created some kind of online groups and claimed to be administering death quests. He was arrested and charged. That part was real. But the global epidemic, the hundreds of deaths, the massive coordinated network of administrators, that was largely media hysteria. Researchers found that most blue whale deaths were either unrelated suicides retroactively attributed to the game, or the suicides were by vulnerable individuals who might have engaged with the concept but weren't part of any organized challenge. The 50 challenge structure, the whale imagery, the specific tasks, these became a meme that people copied and mythologized. The panic itself became dangerous. By constantly reporting on this challenge, media outlets essentially created a blueprint and gave vulnerable people ideas they might not have had otherwise. It became a self-fulfilling prophecy. Some teens started mimicking what they'd heard about the game, not because they were contacted by administrators, but because the media coverage had made them aware of it. Mental health experts pointed out that suicidal ideation is complex. Blaming a social media challenge oversimplifies the issue and can actually prevent proper intervention. The Blue Whale Challenge became a convenient scapegoat for youth suicide, rather than addressing underlying mental health crises, bullying, or lack of support systems. Hot. So what was it really? One disturbed individual in Russia who inspired copycats, amplified by media panic into a global phenomenon that was more myth than reality. The real danger wasn't a coordinated death cult. It was how we talk about suicide, how media sensationalizes tragedy, and how vulnerable people can be influenced by both malicious actors and irresponsible reporting. Unfavorable semicircle. Picture this. You're scrolling YouTube in 2015 and stumble across a channel called Unfavorable Semicircle. It's uploading videos constantly, not occasionally, constantly. Thousands upon thousands of videos. Each one contains abstract images, random symbols, distorted audio, and seemingly random patterns. There's no explanation, no channel description, just an endless stream of bizarre content being dumped into the void. This wasn't someone uploading weekly vlogs. At its peak, Unfavorable Semicircle was uploading hundreds of videos per day. The sheer volume was incomprehensible. Who would create this much content, and why? The videos themselves were deeply strange. Flickering images, warped sounds, patterns that almost seemed meaningful but never quite resolved into sense. It felt coded, purposeful, but utterly impenetrable. The internet detective community went absolutely wild. This had to mean something. The patterns were too consistent to be random, too weird to be accidental. Maybe it was a numbers station for the digital age, spy agencies communicating through YouTube. Could be an AI achieving consciousness and trying to communicate. Some thought it was steganography, secret messages hidden in the audio or visual data. Others suspected it was a puzzle, an ARG waiting to be cracked. People spent hundreds of hours analyzing the videos. They ran the audio through spectrogram analysis looking for hidden images. They examined the symbols for linguistic patterns. Forums dedicated themselves to decoding Unfavorable Semicircle. It became an obsession for some. This huge mystery just sitting there, uploading relentlessly, refusing to explain itself. YouTube eventually shut down the channel for spam, which only intensified speculation. Why would YouTube shut down a spy operation or AI experiment? Unless they were in on it, or unless they'd been pressured by someone who didn't want the content decoded. The shutdown felt like confirmation that something significant was happening. Then the creator came forward. It was an experimental art project, an artist exploring algorithmic creation, pattern generation, and the limits of content platforms. The massive upload volume was part of the experiment, testing how much content YouTube could handle, what patterns emerged from procedural generation, and how people would react to large-scale, inexplicable content. Just art, weird, experimental, boundary-pushing art, but art nonetheless. Not spies, not AI consciousness, not a puzzle to be solved. The meaning was in the meaninglessness. The project's purpose was partly to observe how humans desperately search for patterns and significance, even in random or procedurally generated content. Bit anticlimactic, maybe, but also kind of fascinating that someone created thousands of videos just to see what would happen. And what happened was exactly what they probably hoped. People lost their minds trying to find meaning. Mission accomplished. The Wyoming Incident. There's a video that circulated online claiming to be footage from a 1987 local television broadcast, hijacking in Wyoming, and it's absolutely nightmare fuel. The footage shows a normal TV program suddenly interrupted by disturbing imagery, stretched, distorted faces speaking incomprehensible words in garbled voices. The faces look almost melted, wrong in that deep, uncanny valley way that makes your skin crawl. Text flashes on screen, warnings about remembering, about forgetting, about something terrible that happened. The production quality was intentionally degraded. VHS tracking errors, audio distortion, all the hallmarks of genuine old footage. It felt like something that had been buried and shouldn't have been found. The video came with a backstory. Supposedly, this broadcast had interrupted Wyoming television for several minutes, traumatizing viewers. Afterward, everyone who saw it developed strange symptoms: memory loss, psychological problems. The government allegedly covered it up. People ate it up, The video made the rounds on creepypasta forums and YouTube. Viewers analyzed every frame, trying to decode the garbled speech and understand what the distorted faces were saying. Some claimed they felt genuinely unwell after watching. Others reported weird dreams. The legend grew. This wasn't just a creepy video, it was allegedly dangerous to watch. Except Wyoming locals had a problem with this story. Nobody from Wyoming remembered any such broadcast. No news reports from 1987, no FCC investigations, no traumatized viewers. For something supposedly so significant, it had left zero footprint in actual Wyoming history. Turns out the Wyoming incident was an ARG, alternate reality game, created entirely as fiction, designed to look like found footage from a bygone era. The creator did an excellent job making it feel authentic, using visual and audio techniques that mimicked old broadcasts perfectly. The degraded quality wasn't just aesthetic, it was camouflage, making it harder to identify as modern creation. Pretty clever, really. They understood that mystery plus plausible deniability equals viral success. Give people something creepy with just enough evidence to seem real, and they'll do the rest themselves. The Wyoming incident worked because it tapped into existing fears about broadcast intrusions, government cover-ups, and forbidden knowledge. Doesn't make it any less creepy to watch, though. Knowing it's fake doesn't stop those faces from being disturbing. The smiley face killer theory. Starting in the late 1990s, young men, mostly college-aged, athletic, often intoxicated, started turning up dead in rivers and bodies of water across the Midwest and beyond. The deaths were typically ruled accidental drownings. Drunk guy, wandering near water, tragic accident. It happens. Except retired NYPD detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte noticed something weird. Graffiti of smiley faces appeared near many of the body recovery sites. Their theory? These weren't accidents. A coordinated gang or cult of serial killers was targeting young men, murdering them, dumping them in water, and marking their kills with spray-painted smiley faces. The theory gained serious traction. Grieving families desperately wanted answers beyond, "Your son drunkenly fell in a river." The pattern seemed too consistent. Similar victim profiles, similar circumstances, and those damn smiley faces. The detectives identified dozens of cases, spanning multiple states, and nearly 2 decades. They presented their findings to media outlets. The coverage was extensive. Smiley face killers became a genuine true crime phenomenon. People were terrified. Parents warned college students. The theory suggested a massive, organized conspiracy of murderers operating undetected for years. Then the FBI actually investigated, thoroughly. They examined the cases, the evidence, the supposed patterns. Their conclusion: no connection, no conspiracy, no smiley face gang. The deaths were almost certainly unrelated drownings, mostly involving intoxicated young men near water, which tragically is not uncommon. As for the smiley faces, graffiti is everywhere, especially near urban waterways. Smiley faces are among the most common graffiti symbols worldwide. Finding a smiley face near a body of water in a city is like finding a Starbucks near a college campus. Not exactly evidence of conspiracy. When you look for patterns, you'll find them, even if they're coincidental. Forensic experts and criminal psychologists backed the FBI's assessment. The theory didn't hold up to scrutiny. Different causes of death, different locations, different timelines, no physical evidence linking cases. The idea of a multi-state murder conspiracy operating for decades without leaving concrete evidence or getting caught strains credibility. But the theory persists in true crime circles. Some families still believe their loved ones were murdered, And you can understand why. Accepting a random preventable accident is harder than believing there was a villain responsible. The smiley face killer theory offered meaning where there was just tragedy. Human brains prefer patterns and narratives over randomness and bad luck. Sometimes, though, terrible things happen without a sinister explanation behind them. The Toynbee tiles. Walk around certain streets in Philadelphia, and you might look down to see something bizarre embedded in the asphalt. A tile. Not decorative or official. A weird, cryptic message pressed into the road surface. Toynbee idea in movie? 2001 Resurrect Dead on planet Jupiter. Variations exist, but the core message remains similarly baffling. And it's not just Philadelphia. These tiles appeared in over 24 cities across the US and South America. For decades, nobody knew who was making them or why. The messages referenced the movie 2001, A Space Odyssey, and historian Arnold Toynbee, but in ways that made no coherent sense together. The tiles themselves were clearly homemade, layers of linoleum and tar pressed into the road, designed to become part of the street surface. Whoever made them understood how to place them so they'd survive traffic and weather. Oh, the mystery-obsessed people. How was someone placing tiles in the middle of busy intersections without getting caught? Why these cryptic messages about resurrection on Jupiter? Some tiles contained longer rants about media conspiracies and government cover-ups. The whole thing felt like either genius-level art or the manifestation of someone's mental illness. Theories abounded. Secret society spreading cosmic truth. Guerrilla artist making commentary on meaning and communication. Time traveler leaving warnings. The tiles kept appearing through the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s. Hundreds of them, always with similar themes, always mysteriously placed. Then investigative documentarians started digging. They tracked down witnesses, analyzed the tiles, followed leads. The trail led to a reclusive Philadelphia man named Severino Sevi Verna, a social worker who'd become isolated and obsessed with ideas about death, resurrection, and Jupiter. He'd apparently been creating and placing the tiles for years, working mostly at night, using a method involving dropping the tile from his car while stopped at intersections, letting traffic press them in. Verna died in 2003, but tiles continued appearing afterward, likely copycats or perhaps accomplices continuing his work. The documentary Resurrect Dead pieced together the story. What seemed like profound mystery was essentially one man's obsessive project, born from personal philosophy and possibly untreated mental health issues. Here's the thing, though. Even knowing the answer, the Toynbee tiles remain kind of beautiful. Someone spent decades of their life embedding cryptic messages into city streets, creating a mystery that outlived them. Whether it was art, delusion, or something in between, it became part of urban folklore. You can still find the tiles if you know where to look. They're deteriorating now, fading back into the asphalt. But for a while, someone made sure their weird message was literally part of the streets. There's something almost poetic about that kind of determined strangeness. Creepypastas as real footage. Let's talk about the Russian sleep experiment. If you've been anywhere near internet horror, you've probably encountered it. The story claims that in the 1940s, Soviet researchers locked 5 prisoners in a sealed chamber and pumped in an experimental gas that prevented sleep. The prisoners stayed awake for 15 days. By the end, they'd descended into complete madness, self-mutilation, and something that seemed beyond human. When researchers finally opened the chamber, they found a scene of absolute horror. The story is visceral, detailed, and disturbing. It includes documentation, speaks with clinical precision, and feels like a leaked classified document. And it's completely, entirely, 100% fictional. Written as a creepypasta, internet horror fiction and posted on forums for exactly that purpose. The author never claimed it was real. But here's where it gets interesting. The story escaped its original context. It got reposted without the "this is fiction" framing. People started sharing it as historical fact. YouTube channels presented it as real declassified Soviet experiments. Credulous websites listed it among disturbing true events from history. The fiction became treated as fact simply through repetition and removal from context. This happened with countless creepypastas. The Rake, Smile Dog, Jeff the Killer, SCP Foundation entries, all explicitly created as fiction, but presented by some as genuine documentation of supernatural entities or events. The problem gets worse when someone creates evidence, photoshopped images, fake audio, staged videos. Suddenly, fiction has proof. The Russian sleep experiment is particularly notable because it still circulates in true horror compilations. Comment sections fill with debates about whether it really happened. Some people genuinely believe the Soviet Union conducted this experiment, despite zero historical evidence, impossibility of the described physiology, and the story's traceable origins as internet fiction. Why does this happen? A few reasons. First, creepypastas are often written in realistic styles, documentary tone, clinical language, specific details. Second, people encounter them divorced from original context. Third, there's a desire to believe. Scary stories are more thrilling if they're real. Fourth, the internet has eroded the barriers between fiction and fact. Everything exists in the same feed. Writers of creepypasta never intended to fool people. They were participating in a collaborative horror fiction community, like modern campfire stories. But once content goes viral, original intent becomes irrelevant. The stories mutate, get misattributed, and take on lives of their own. So if you see a disturbing historical event circulating online, especially if it's from some vague classified document or suppressed by the government, maybe check if it originated on a creative writing forum. Chances are decent it's just a talented horror writer doing their job a little too well. Wyoming Underground's Screams. Around 2015, an audio recording started making the rounds online. The description claimed it was recorded in Wyoming by geologists drilling deep into the earth. What they captured was terrifying. Screams, human-sounding screams, hundreds of them, echoing from deep underground, like souls trapped in hell itself. The audio was genuinely unsettling, layered, anguished wailing that sounded almost human, but not quite. The story attached to it was compelling. Geologists drilling deeper than ever before, breaking through into some cavity, lowering a microphone, and recording what sounded like eternal torment. The religious implications were obvious and immediately seized upon. Was this literal hell? Had we drilled into the underworld? Christian websites shared it as proof of biblical truth. Skeptics and believers alike listened, disturbed by what they heard. Some versions of the story placed the recording in Siberia instead of Wyoming, claiming Soviet scientists had drilled the Kola superdeep borehole and recorded screams from 9 miles down. The details changed depending on who was telling it, but the core remained. We drilled into the earth and heard the damned screaming. The audio is genuinely creepy. Even knowing it's fake, it's effective horror. The layered nature of the sounds, the way they almost form words, the sheer anguish in the tones. It hits something primal. Our brains are wired to recognize human distress, and this triggers every alarm. Of course it wasn't hell. Audio analysis revealed the truth. The screams were animal vocalizations that had been slowed down and layered, likely coyotes, foxes, or similar animals. When you slow down certain animal calls and add effects, they take on eerily human qualities. Add some reverb to simulate underground echoing, layer multiple tracks, and boom, you've got hell sounds. The whole thing was either a deliberate hoax or possibly started as a misunderstanding that got embellished. No credible geological expedition ever recorded such sounds. The Kola borehole, which is real, never yielded anything supernatural, just extremely hot rock. The Wyoming version has even less basis in reality. What's fascinating is how readily people accepted it. The audio was passed around churches, discussed seriously in religious contexts, and treated as genuine evidence. The desire to confirm existing beliefs, whether that's biblical literalism or just general supernatural interest, overrode critical thinking. Nobody asked why geologists would be lowering microphones into boreholes, or how such a discovery wouldn't be major news, or why the audio quality was so conveniently clear. Just slowed down animals, though. Nature makes weird sounds. Slow them down, take them out of context, add a spooky story, and suddenly you've got Wyoming's gateway to hell. Reality is usually more mundane than we'd like. Sometimes screaming souls are just confused coyotes played at half speed. The Backrooms found footage. In 2019, a photo appeared online showing an unsettling yellow wallpapered office space with fluorescent lighting and endless empty rooms. Someone captioned it with a description of the Backrooms, a place you could accidentally clip through reality into, like a glitch in a video game. Infinite empty offices, buzzing lights, the hum of fluorescent tubes, complete isolation, and maybe something lurking in there with you. The concept exploded. It tapped into something called liminal space aesthetics, those eerie transitional areas like empty malls, hotel hallways at 3 a.m., or deserted parking garages, places that feel wrong when they're empty because they're designed to have people in them. The Backrooms became internet folklore almost overnight. Artists created their own interpretations. Writers developed entire mythologies around different levels you could descend through. Then the videos started appearing. Footage of people supposedly trapped in the Backrooms. First-person perspective, shaky camera work, endless yellow corridors. The cinematography was convincing. That specific quality of old camcorder footage, the genuine seeming panic in the camera movements. Some videos showed glimpses of entities, things that might be hunting the lost person filming. Comment sections filled with people asking if it was real. The footage looked authentic enough, the fear seemed genuine, and the Backrooms concept had spread so widely that new people encountering the videos might not know it started as a creative writing prompt. Could there really be people stuck in some parallel dimension of office spaces? Of course not. The Backrooms videos were CGI and practical effects created by talented filmmakers and digital artists. Some used game engines like Unity or Unreal to create the environments. Others found actual empty office spaces and filmed there, then added effects in post-production. The found footage style was deliberate aesthetic choice, homage to Blair Witch Project and similar films. What started as a single creepy photo and a short fictional description became a collaborative creative project involving hundreds of artists, writers, and filmmakers. The Backrooms grew into its own mythology, complete with wikis documenting different levels, entities, and rules. It's actually impressive how quickly internet culture can build entire fictional universes. The found footage was always fiction, well-crafted fiction that understood how to create atmosphere and leverage our fear of endless empty spaces. Nobody's actually trapped in an infinite office, though if you've ever worked in a cubicle farm, it might have felt close. Lake City, quiet pills. This one's a rabbit hole. Around 2009, Reddit users noticed something strange on a user's profile named Religion of Peace. Hidden in seemingly normal posts were cryptic references, coordinates, and mentions of something called Lake City Quiet Pills. The username posted on various subreddits, but occasionally dropped hints about darker activities, references to pills, locations, encoded messages. People started digging. They found connections to a sketchy website that appeared to be a pornography site but contained hidden forums. In these forums, more coded language. Quiet pills seemed to be slang for something sinister. Bullets, maybe? Assassinations? The whole thing had an air of hired killers communicating in plain sight, using the pornography site as a front for something much darker. The investigation went deep. Armchair detectives connected usernames across platforms. They found references to military contractors. Geographic coordinates pointed to conflict zones. Some people became convinced they'd stumbled onto an actual assassin-for-hire operation, using Reddit and obscure websites to coordinate jobs. The name Lake City even corresponded to a Lake City Army ammunition plant location. It felt real. Too many specific details. Too much effort put into the codes and hidden messages. Why would someone create such an elaborate setup unless they were actually hiding something? True crime communities became obsessed. People compiled timelines, decoded messages, and tried to warn authorities about what appeared to be a functioning murder-for-hire network. Then the creator came forward. Lake City Quiet Pills was an ARG, alternate reality game, an elaborate long-running storytelling project designed to blur the line between fiction and reality. The creator had spent years building the mystery, planting clues, creating interconnected accounts and websites. It was storytelling as puzzle, narrative as investigation. The level of detail was genuinely impressive. This wasn't thrown together overnight. Someone had crafted an entire fictional conspiracy, complete with breadcrumbs spread across multiple platforms, coded language that seemed military or intelligence-related, and enough ambiguity to keep people guessing. It worked because it played on real anxieties about the dark web, hidden forums, and activities happening just below the surface of normal internet use. Looking back, it's kind of brilliant, morally questionable maybe. Presenting assassination for hire as entertainment feels dicey, but technically brilliant. The creator understood how to leverage multiple platforms, how to drop clues at the right pace, and how to make people feel like they were uncovering something genuinely dangerous. They weren't, just a very dedicated storyteller with perhaps too much free time and a knack for making people paranoid. Silent Hill Knee 1. A YouTube channel appeared featuring videos of mannequins in disturbing scenarios, not department store mannequins posed pleasantly. These were unsettling. The channel was called Silent Hill Knee 1, obviously referencing the horror game series. The videos showed these figures in creepy locations, sometimes moving slightly, always filmed with this grainy, unsettling quality that made everything feel wrong. The mannequins themselves looked disturbingly realistic in some shots, positioned in abandoned buildings, dark basements, outdoor locations at night. Sometimes the camera would be static, just watching them. Other times it would move around them slowly, revealing details that made your skin crawl. The whole aesthetic was pure nightmare fuel. Liminal spaces meets uncanny valley meets whatever was happening in the filmmaker's head. Viewers couldn't tell if this was art or something darker. The videos had no explanation, no context, just these recurring mannequins appearing in increasingly disturbing scenarios. Some videos seemed to suggest a narrative, maybe the mannequins moving between locations, possibly interacting with each other, but it was always vague, always ambiguous, always deeply creepy. Comment sections filled with theories. Was this documenting something real? Were these actual crime scenes? Maybe the mannequins represented victims, or maybe whoever was filming had an unhealthy obsession that was escalating. The lack of context let people's imaginations run wild. And let's be honest, someone creating videos of mannequins in abandoned buildings without explanation is objectively weird behavior. Turns out it was a filmmaker's art project, someone exploring horror aesthetics, experimenting with visual storytelling and atmosphere. The mannequins were props. The locations were scouted specifically for their creepy qualities. The whole thing was deliberate artistic choice, creating something that provoked unease and made viewers question what they were watching. Which is kind of what good horror does, right? It makes you uncomfortable. It presents familiar things, human forms, everyday locations, and makes them alien and threatening. Silent Hill No. 1. One succeeded at creating genuine unease using simple tools, mannequins, locations, and camera work. No jump scares, no gore, just sustained creepiness. The creator never faced any consequences because nothing illegal or harmful was happening, just someone making weird art on YouTube. But man, those videos stick with you. Even knowing they're just art projects doesn't make mannequin videos less unsettling. There's something about human-shaped objects that aren't quite human that hits different. The creator understood that and exploited it perfectly. Ghost crash test. Dummy. A video went viral showing what appeared to be a crash test dummy walking by itself in some kind of testing facility, just casually strolling through the frame like it had places to be. No visible strings, no obvious puppetry. The dummy moved with this jerky, unnatural gait that made it look genuinely autonomous and deeply creepy. Paranormal enthusiasts went wild. Here was video evidence of something impossible. Objects don't just animate themselves. Was the facility haunted? Had the dummy absorbed some kind of energy from all the crashes? Maybe all those simulated deaths had left an imprint. The footage got shared across ghost hunting communities, used as evidence that inanimate objects could become possessed or animated. Skeptics immediately called it fake, but couldn't immediately explain how it was done. Movement looked too smooth for simple stop motion. There weren't obvious signs of CG. The facility setting looked authentic, and the dummy's movement, while unnatural, had a weird consistency to it. Something was making it move, but what? The paranormal angle never made sense, though. Crash test dummies aren't people. They've never been alive. Why would they be haunted? And if facilities where objects get destroyed were automatically haunted, every junkyard would be teeming with ghost cars. But people really wanted it to be supernatural, so logic took a back seat. The actual explanation was disappointingly simple: pneumatic control wires. The dummy was being remotely operated using thin cables and pneumatic controls, essentially sophisticated puppetry. The wires were thin enough and the lighting specific enough that they weren't visible in the footage. Modern crash test dummies actually do use internal mechanisms for positioning and can be remotely adjusted, so this was just taking existing technology and using it for a weird demonstration or prank. Once you know what to look for, you can see the slight resistance in the movements, the way the dummy doesn't move with complete freedom but follows specific paths. It's being controlled, just not in an obvious way. Probably someone testing the remote control systems or just having fun making creepy videos. And that's the thing about viral paranormal footage. There's almost always a mundane explanation if you know enough about the technology or context. Pneumatic wires, camera angles, lighting tricks. The real world has enough cool technology that you don't need ghosts to explain weird videos, though haunted crash test dummies would make for a decent horror movie premise, honestly. Humpty Dumpty 007, Twitter codes. In the early days of Twitter, an account called HumptyDumpty007 started posting what looked like encrypted messages, random strings of letters and numbers. No context, no explanation, just code after code, tweet after tweet. The account followed no one, engaged with no one, just dumped these cryptographic-looking strings into the void. Naturally, people assumed spy communication. This was peak Cold War nostalgia era, and the idea of intelligence agencies using social media for coded communication seemed plausible. Twitter was public, free, and global, perfect for dead drops and encoded messages. Maybe HumptyDumpty007 was a handler sending instructions to assets, or an asset reporting back. The codes certainly looked intentional. Code breakers got involved. Amateur cryptographers tried various decryption methods. People looked for patterns, analyzed frequency, tried every cipher method they could think of. Nothing worked. The messages remained gibberish, which perversely made them seem more legitimate. Obviously, real spy codes would be extremely difficult to crack without the key. The account's persistence added to the mystery. It kept posting for years. Thousands of coded tweets, never deviating from the pattern, never engaging, never explaining, just an endless stream of apparent encryption. That kind of dedication suggested purpose. Nobody maintains a meaningless account for years, right? Wrong. HumptyDumpty007 was a bot. Specifically, a bot testing encryption algorithms. Someone had created an automated system that generated encrypted strings and posted them to Twitter as a way of testing various cryptographic methods. It was essentially a programming exercise or encryption experiment running on autopilot. The spy codes were just random outputs from encryption algorithms. They didn't contain messages. They didn't mean anything. A programmer somewhere had set up a bot to practice encryption, pointed it at Twitter, and then apparently forgot about it or just let it run indefinitely. The persistence wasn't dedication. It was automation. The bot didn't care. It just kept doing what it was programmed to do. Kind of anticlimactic, but also weirdly fitting. In the digital age, not everything mysterious is meaningful. Sometimes it's just someone's abandoned programming project, chugging along in the background, generating meaningless data because nobody bothered to shut it off. The real mystery might be who created it, and whether they even remember it exists, but that's way less exciting than international espionage. The Black Knight Satellite. For decades, conspiracy theorists have pointed to grainy photos of an odd-looking object orbiting Earth. Dark, irregularly shaped, tumbling through space where it supposedly shouldn't be. They called it the Black Knight Satellite, claimed it had been up there for 13,000 years, and insisted it was either alien technology monitoring humanity or some ancient civilization's lost spacecraft. The photos looked legitimately weird. This wasn't your typical satellite shape. The mythology around the Black Knight grew elaborate. Some claimed Nikola Tesla had detected radio signals from it in 1899. Others said it was in polar orbit, which was supposedly impossible for the technology of the time it was discovered. The object appeared in NASA photos from various missions, always this same dark, asymmetrical thing, floating where satellites don't usually hang out. UFO researchers treated it as smoking gun evidence. Here was an unidentified object that NASA had photographed multiple times, but refused to explain. The space agency's silence seemed suspicious. Why wouldn't they address this obvious anomaly? Clearly they were hiding something. The photos were real. That much was undeniable. Something was definitely up there. The problem with conspiracy theories is they often ignore boring explanations in favor of exciting ones. The Black Knight Satellite sounds way cooler than the truth. It was space junk. Specifically, a thermal blanket that came loose during a 1998 spacewalk from the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Astronauts were installing equipment on the International Space Station when the blanket got away from them. The blanket tumbled through orbit, catching sunlight at weird angles, looking bizarre and vaguely technological in photographs. Its irregular shape and dark color made it appear mysterious. NASA knew exactly what it was. They'd lost it, after all, but didn't necessarily connect random public conspiracy theories to their missing thermal blanket. As for the earlier sightings and Tesla's signals, confirmation bias and retrofitting. People saw various pieces of space debris over the years and retroactively claimed they were all the same ancient satellite. Tesla probably detected natural radio phenomena or early radio interference. The polar orbit claims were based on misunderstandings of orbital mechanics. Space is full of junk. Humanity has been launching things up there for decades, and not everything stays put. Lost tools, broken satellite pieces, thermal blankets, it's all floating around, reflecting sunlight and occasionally looking spooky in photographs. The Black Knight wasn't an ancient alien probe watching Earth. Just a blanket someone dropped in space, proving even astronauts have clumsy days at work. Russian sky spiral. December 2009. Early morning in Norway. People looked up and saw something that made them question reality. A massive spiral appeared in the sky, a perfect geometric pattern of blue-white light, spinning like a cosmic hurricane. A turquoise beam shot from the center. The whole thing looked computer-generated, like someone had photoshopped a screensaver onto the dawn sky, except hundreds of people were seeing it simultaneously. Social media exploded. Photos and videos poured in from across northern Norway. Everyone captured the same thing, this impossible spiral hanging in the sky, rotating slowly, looking absolutely alien. UFO enthusiasts lost their minds. This was it. Undeniable evidence, mass sighting, video documentation. No way to explain this as swamp gas or Venus. The theories came fast. Portal to another dimension opening. CERN doing experiments that were affecting the sky. Alien spacecraft arrival. Some kind of atmospheric phenomenon science hadn't documented yet. Religious groups saw apocalyptic significance. The spiral looked too perfect, too intentional to be natural. Something or someone had created this. Even skeptics struggled initially. What natural phenomenon creates a perfect spiral in the sky? The videos were clear enough that obvious explanations like clouds or aurora seemed insufficient. The thing was geometric, structured, and behaving unlike anything meteorological. It stayed visible for minutes, not seconds, giving people time to grab cameras and document it. Then Russia sheepishly admitted what happened. They'd launched a Bulava missile from a submarine in the White Sea. The launch failed. Specifically, the third stage malfunctioned, causing the missile to spiral out of control while venting fuel. The fuel caught sunlight at high altitude, creating that spectacular spiral effect. The turquoise beam was the earlier rocket stages still functioning normally. The timing and location lined up perfectly. The missile was launched right when the spiral appeared, from the exact direction observers reported. Once Russia confirmed it, the pieces fell into place. High-altitude missile failures can create weird atmospheric effects, especially at dawn or dusk when sunlight hits the exhaust at specific angles. Norway was pissed, actually. Russia had apparently not given them a heads-up about testing missiles that close to Norwegian airspace. The failed launch became a minor diplomatic incident, separate from the UFO panic it caused. But for a few hours, Norway genuinely thought they were witnessing something otherworldly. Pretty spectacular way for a weapons test to fail, though. Most military mistakes don't create beautiful cosmic spirals that get mistaken for alien contact. Russia's missile program may have issues, but at least their failures are photogenic. trumpet sky, sounds. Starting around 2011, videos began appearing online of strange sounds coming from the sky. Loud, metallic, droning noises that people described as sounding like trumpets or horns. The sounds were genuinely eerie, deep, resonating, almost mechanical. Videos came from different countries, different cities, all capturing similar phenomena. People filming the sky, looking confused and frightened, while this apocalyptic noise echoed around them. Religious communities immediately connected it to biblical prophecy, the trumpets from Revelation, the end times announcing themselves. The videos seemed to support this, unexplained celestial noises with no visible source, just the sky itself making noise, which doesn't happen under normal circumstances. The sounds were too widespread to dismiss as isolated incidents. Conspiracy theorists had different ideas. ARP, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, was supposedly testing weather control technology that created these sounds, or maybe underground military bases running massive machinery, secret government projects that were literally making the earth groan. The mechanical quality of the sounds supported technological rather than natural origins. The videos kept coming, different cities, different times, but always these similar droning trumpet-like sounds. People standing in parking lots, streets, backyards, filming the sky while this noise echoed around them. No visible aircraft, no obvious source, just sound, seemingly coming from everywhere and nowhere. Acoustics experts eventually explained it. The sky trumpets were industrial sounds, echoing through urban environments in weird ways. Cities create complex acoustic landscapes. Sound bounces off buildings, gets channeled through streets, echoes across open spaces. Large industrial equipment, construction machinery, factory operations, train yards, creates low-frequency sounds that travel far and echo strangely. Atmospheric conditions affect how sound travels. Temperature inversions can cause sounds to carry much farther than normal and seem to come from the sky rather than ground level. Combine industrial noise with specific atmospheric conditions and urban acoustics, and you get these weird, directionless droning sounds that seem apocalyptic. Each video probably had a different actual source. Construction project several miles away, factory running heavy equipment, train brakes at a distant rail yard. But similar atmospheric conditions in different places created similar acoustic effects, making it seem like a global phenomenon rather than local industrial noise. The biblical interpretation says more about what people want to find than what's actually happening. Humanity has been predicting the apocalypse forever. Any unusual phenomenon gets interpreted as a sign. Meanwhile, it's just construction noise bouncing weird. The actual apocalypse will probably be less acoustic and more unfortunate. Until then, those are just earth movers and industrial compressors echoing strangely through morning air. The piano on the beach. In 2011, someone spotted a piano sitting on a sandbar in Miami's Biscayne Bay, not near the beach, on a sandbar, in the water, a full-sized upright piano just sitting there like it had always belonged. No explanation, no obvious way it got there, just a piano, alone in the bay, surrounded by water. The image went viral. People kayaked out to see it. Photographers captured it from every angle. The piano became a minor tourist attraction, but also a genuine mystery. How did a piano, a heavy, awkward piece of furniture, end up on a sandbar in the middle of a bay? Moving a piano is difficult under normal circumstances. Getting one onto a sandbar requires effort, planning, and probably a boat. Theories ranged from reasonable to absurd. Maybe it fell off a boat being used to transport furniture. hurricane debris that somehow landed perfectly upright, art installation, though no artist claimed responsibility initially. A few people suggested it was viral marketing for something, though for what remained unclear. Pirates? Were there piano-loving pirates? The mystery deepened because the piano stayed there. Days passed. It wasn't removed. It wasn't claimed. Just this piano, slowly being destroyed by salt water and sun, sitting on its sandbar like some surreal monument to musical appreciation or complete randomness. People started treating it as an actual landmark. Meet you at the Bay piano. Environmental officials eventually had to remove it because turns out leaving a piano to disintegrate in a marine ecosystem isn't great. Before removal, though, the truth came out. It was a student art installation. Some art students had hauled the piano out there deliberately as a project exploring themes of isolation, impermanence, and the absurd. They'd put genuine effort into getting it positioned on the sandbar. The artists eventually came forward after the mystery had generated sufficient attention. Their installation succeeded beyond expectations, not just as art, but as viral phenomenon. They'd created something that made people stop, question, and wonder, which is kind of the point of good art, right? Bit inconsiderate environmentally, leaving a piano to rot in the bay, but as mysterious object placements go, pretty memorable. Way better than another flash mob or guerrilla marketing stunt. Someone saw a piano and a sandbar and thought, these should be together, then actually made it happen. That's dedication to a bit. The piano itself was probably beyond repair anyway. Might as well let it have one final weird moment of glory sitting in the ocean, confusing everyone. The Help Find My Son website. Around 2008, a website appeared with a desperate plea. A mother looking for her missing son. The site had photos of a young boy, information about his disappearance, and increasingly frantic appeals for help. The design was simple, almost crude, which made it feel authentic. This looked like something a grieving parent might throw together, not a professional production. But something felt off. The details were vague. The location of the disappearance wasn't specific. The timeline didn't quite make sense, and the photos of the child had a strange quality to them. Hard to pinpoint, but something looked staged or artificial. Still, people wanted to help. Missing children are serious. Better to investigate and be wrong than ignore a genuine crisis. True crime communities started digging. They tried to verify the details, cross-referenced missing children databases, reached out to authorities in the areas mentioned. Nothing matched. No reports of a child matching the description going missing. No Amber Alerts. No news coverage. Which would be weird for a child disappearance that the mother was publicizing online. The website evolved. New updates appeared, more desperate messages, but they raised more questions than answers. The mother's writing style seemed inconsistent. Some updates sounded genuinely distraught. Others seemed almost performative, hitting emotional beats without real substance. People who'd lost children noticed the grief didn't feel authentic. Then someone found the smoking gun. The website was registered to a marketing company. The whole thing was viral marketing for an upcoming movie or TV show. The missing child was fictional. The desperate mother was a character. The entire website was essentially an advertisement disguised as a crisis. People were pissed. Using missing children as a marketing hook felt exploitative and gross. Real families deal with actual missing children. Turning that trauma into a promotional stunt crossed ethical lines. The campaign generated attention, but mostly negative. Whatever they were promoting got associated with bad taste rather than clever marketing. The website eventually got taken down after the backlash. Maybe the company realized they'd miscalculated badly. Using real tragedy as inspiration for fake tragedy to sell entertainment is a tricky line to walk, and they face-planted across it. This kind of alternate reality marketing was trendy for a while. Blur the lines between fiction and reality to generate buzz. But there's a difference between creating an engaging mystery and exploiting actual human suffering for clicks. Missing children aren't aesthetic. They're tragedy. Using that for viral marketing isn't clever. It's just callous. Hopefully, whoever greenlit that campaign learned something, though given marketing trends, probably not. Haunted Dybbuk box. eBay listings are usually pretty straightforward. Chair for sale, used iPhone, maybe some vintage collectibles. But in 2001, a listing appeared that was anything but ordinary. A wine cabinet, specifically a Dybbuk box. For those unfamiliar with Jewish folklore, a Dybbuk is a malicious possessing spirit, and this box supposedly contained one. The seller, Kevin Manis, wrote an elaborate description of the horrors this box had brought into his life. According to the listing, Manis bought the box at an estate sale. It had belonged to a Holocaust survivor who'd used it to contain a Dybbuk. After bringing it home, terrible things started happening. Nightmares, health problems, his hair fell out. Every person he gave the box to experienced similar phenomena and returned it, terrified. The listing read like a horror story, detailing each person's encounters with this allegedly cursed object. The box sold, then got resold, then resold again. Each owner reported weird experiences and couldn't wait to get rid of it. The story grew with each transaction. People suffered nightmares of an old woman, smelled strange odors, experienced health issues. The Dybbuk box became famous. It inspired books, documentaries, and eventually a horror movie, The Possession, in 2012. Ghost hunters investigated it. Paranormal researchers examined it. The box traveled between owners, each adding their own chapter to its legend. Museums acquired it. Zach Bargans from Ghost Adventures eventually bought it and locked it in his haunted museum in Las Vegas, claiming it was too dangerous to display openly. Here's the thing, though. Kevin Manis eventually admitted the story was fabricated. He'd made it up to make the eBay listing more interesting and help the box sell. There was no Holocaust survivor, no Dybbuk, no curse, just a wine cabinet and a creative story attached to it. The whole phenomenon was essentially collective belief feeding on itself. But Manis's admission came years later, after the box had become legendary. And weirdly, some subsequent owners still insisted their experiences were real. Maybe they'd psyched themselves into experiencing phenomena. Maybe they were embellishing for attention. Or maybe once you tell people an object is cursed, their brains start finding evidence to confirm it. The Dybbuk box sits in that museum now, still considered dangerous, despite its creator admitting the hoax, which says something about how badly people want to believe in the supernatural. Give them a good story and a creepy-looking object, and the truth becomes almost irrelevant. The box isn't haunted, never was, but the legend, that's proven pretty immortal. Dead girlfriend. Facebook messages. Few things are more heartbreaking than losing someone you love. In the age of social media, that grief gets complicated by digital remains, profiles, photos, messages that stay online after someone's gone. Which is why when a guy started receiving Facebook messages from his dead girlfriend, people didn't immediately dismiss it as impossible. Grief does strange things. Maybe Facebook glitches. Maybe there's something beyond death we don't understand. The story spread online. A man's girlfriend had died. Car accident, illness. The details varied depending on who told it. Months later, he started getting messages from her account. Not random characters or obvious spam. messages that referenced their relationship, inside jokes, personal details only she would know. The messages were coherent, personal, and deeply unsettling. He posted screenshots. The messages looked genuine. People debated explanations. Could Facebook have some weird delayed posting feature? Maybe she'd scheduled posts before dying. Some suggested quantum immortality or parallel universes bleeding through. Others went straight to ghosts, her spirit reaching out through the digital world. Ugh, the romantic tragedy of it captured people's imagination. Star-crossed lovers separated by death, finding a way to communicate through technology. It was modern ghost story meets love story. People wanted it to be real, wanted to believe death wasn't the absolute end, that love could transcend even mortality through Wi-Fi signals and server farms. Paranormal investigators got involved. Psychics offered interpretations. The story got shared across social media with increasingly dramatic framing. Proof of life after death? Dead girlfriend contacts boyfriend through Facebook. The narrative grew more elaborate with each retelling. Then someone actually investigated properly. The girlfriend's account had been hacked, simple as that. Someone gained access, either through password guessing, phishing, or having known her login details, and were sending messages pretending to be her. Why would someone do something so cruel? Could be an ex-friend with a grudge, could be someone who thought it was a funny prank, could be a troll who got off on causing emotional distress. Facebook confirmed unauthorized access to the account. They shut it down. The messages from beyond stopped immediately, which makes sense if they were coming from a hacker rather than the afterlife. The guy was left dealing with both his original grief and this new violation of his girlfriend's digital identity. Account security matters even after death. Families should memorialize or delete accounts of deceased loved ones to prevent exactly this kind of exploitation, because apparently some people are terrible enough to impersonate dead people to mess with grieving partners. The messages weren't supernatural, just deeply, profoundly cruel human behavior dressed up as a ghost story. Crawling pale, humanoids. Night vision footage is inherently creepy. That green-black grainy quality makes everything look otherworldly. So when videos started circulating of pale, skeletal humanoid figures crawling on all fours through forests and backyards, people's lizard brains immediately screamed, "Danger!" The creatures moved wrong, too fluid, too fast, not quite human, but disturbingly close. The videos showed these things from various angles, sometimes crawling along fences, other times moving through trees with unnatural speed and flexibility. They were hairless, elongated, moving with this insectile quality that made them deeply unsettling. The night vision made their eyes reflect light, adding to the alien appearance. They looked like something from a horror movie, except people were presenting them as real footage. Cryptozoology communities went wild. New species, government experiments, actual evidence of creatures living in the margins of human civilization. The footage was clear enough to show detail, but grainy enough to maintain ambiguity. You could see these things moving, but not quite clearly enough to definitively identify them. Some videos came with backstory, found on trail cameras, captured by security systems, filmed by hunters or hikers who'd encountered these creatures in the wild. The context made them feel legitimate. Trail cameras do capture weird things. Security footage does sometimes show the unexpected. The framing suggested documentary evidence rather than entertainment. Viewers analyzed the movement patterns. The way these creatures moved didn't match known animals, too coordinated for raccoons, wrong body structure for deer or dogs. The speed and fluidity seemed almost superhuman. What were these things? Where did they come from? And why were they showing up on cameras now? Because they were CGI. Animation tests, specifically, digital artists practicing creature creation and movement using animation software. Some were students building portfolios. Others were effects artists experimenting with techniques. They'd create these creatures, animate them in realistic environments, add night vision effects for atmosphere, and post them online. The night vision wasn't accidental. It was camouflage. Grainy, low-light footage hides the imperfections in CGI. Motion blur and darkness conceal the tells that would be obvious in clear daylight footage. It's a smart technique if you're testing creature effects and want them to look believable. None of the creators intended to start cryptid panics. They were sharing work on animation forums and portfolio sites, but once the videos escaped that context and got shared in paranormal communities, they transformed from cool animation test to evidence of unknown creatures. Context collapse at its finest. Those pale crawling things aren't real. They're digital creations, proof that CGI has gotten good enough to fool people when presented in the right format. Though honestly, that's almost more impressive than if they were real creatures. Someone sat at a computer and made something creepy enough to convince thousands of people that monsters were real. Ghost car dashcam. Dashcam footage from somewhere in Russia, because of course it's Russia, showed a car approaching an intersection. Another vehicle crossed in front of it. Nothing unusual there. But then the crossing car just disappeared, vanished mid-frame. 1 second it's there, the next it's gone. The dashcam car continues through the intersection where the other vehicle should have crashed through the barrier, but there's nothing. No car, no wreckage, just empty road. The video went absolutely viral. People watched it frame by frame. The car was definitely there, then definitely not there. No obvious cuts in the footage. No clear explanation for where a whole vehicle could go in a split second. Paranormal enthusiasts called it proof of phantom vehicles, ghost cars replaying accidents or driving eternally through the spirit world. Others suggested dimensional shifts. Maybe the car had phased into a parallel reality. The intersection was some kind of weak point where realities overlapped. The dashcam had captured the exact moment a vehicle from another dimension briefly appeared in ours, before snapping back. It sounded absurd, but the video evidence seemed to support something impossible happening. Skeptics insisted it had to be editing, but couldn't immediately point to obvious manipulation. The video quality was typical dashcam footage, not pristine, but clear enough. The timestamp appeared continuous. There was no jarring cut, yet a car had absolutely disappeared in violation of basic physics. So what actually happened? The vanishing car had driven through a broken section of fence. The fence panel was down, creating a gap the car passed through. The camera angle and the fence's position made it look like the car should have hit a solid barrier. Instead, it went through the opening and continued on the other side, out of the dashcam's view. The fence was there, you can see it if you look carefully, but the broken section blended with the background in the grainy dashcam footage. The angle made it appear solid, so when the car disappeared, it had actually just driven through and kept going on a road the dashcam couldn't see from its position. Add the expectations created by how the video was framed. Ghost car vanishes, and people's brains filled in the rest. We saw what we expected to see, a car defying physics, when actually it was just driving normally through a gap in a fence. Camera angles are tricky. They flatten three-dimensional space into 2 dimensions, hiding depth and creating optical illusions. Dashcam footage especially. It's usually not high quality, mounted at weird angles, capturing moments quickly without context. Perfect conditions for making normal events look paranormal. The ghost car was just a car, driving through a gap, like a completely boring non-supernatural vehicle. Haunted doll livestream. Someone set up a live stream of a supposedly haunted doll sitting in a room. Just a static camera pointed at this creepy porcelain doll, streaming 24/7. For a while, nothing happened. People watched anyway because the internet loves watching. Nothing happened if there's a chance something might. Then the doll's eyes moved, just slightly, but definitely moved. The chat exploded. Viewers rewound the footage, analyzed it frame by frame. The eyes had definitely shifted position. Nobody had entered the room. No visible wires or mechanisms. Just this doll, supposedly sitting alone, whose eyes had moved on their own. More people tuned in. The viewer count climbed. Everyone wanted to witness the haunted doll doing something supernatural. Then it moved again. Head tilt this time. Subtle but unmistakable. The doll was moving, on camera, with thousands of people watching. This wasn't grainy footage from 1982. This was live, high-definition streaming. Whatever was happening in real time. People started throwing theories around. Poltergeist activity. The doll was possessed. Maybe there was a spirit attached to it that became active because of all the attention. Paranormal investigators referenced the stream as evidence. Here was a haunted object exhibiting activity under controlled observation. The live stream format meant it couldn't be easily faked. No cuts, no editing, just continuous footage. People could watch for hours and see nothing, then suddenly witness movement. It felt legitimate. Except it wasn't. The whole thing was a setup. The doll had mechanisms inside it. Small motors, servos, remote-controlled joints. Someone off-camera was controlling the movements using wireless controls. The haunted activity was being triggered deliberately to maintain viewer interest and create viral moments. The tells were there if you looked carefully. The movements were too smooth, too mechanical. Real paranormal activity, if it existed, probably wouldn't move things with such precision, and the timing was suspiciously perfect, happening when viewer counts peaked. The doll performed for its audience. Eventually someone admitted the hoax, or people figured it out through analysis. The stream was generating ad revenue and donations from people who believed it was real. The haunted doll was a monetization scheme dressed up as paranormal investigation. Create something that looks supernatural. Stream it live. Collect money from viewers who either believe it or enjoy the show. Not the first haunted doll hoax and won't be the last. Dolls are inherently creepy. Uncanny Valley plus childhood nostalgia creates perfect horror fuel. Add some fishing line or basic servos, point a camera at it, and you've got yourself a revenue stream. No ghosts required. Just a little puppetry and a lot of people willing to believe that porcelain can be possessed. Scary Minecraft Disc 11. Minecraft seems like an unlikely place for horror. It's blocky, colorful, mostly about building things and punching trees, but hidden in the game's code are music discs with ambient sounds, and one of them, Disc 11, is legitimately disturbing. When players found it and played it in-game, they heard what sounded like someone running, breathing heavily, coughing, then screaming. The audio cuts out suddenly, leaving this unsettling silence. The internet did what it does best and went completely overboard. Players analyzed the audio file, slowed it down, reversed it, ran it through spectrogram analysis looking for hidden images. Some claimed to hear words in the distorted sounds. Others said the breathing and running matched someone being chased. The abrupt ending suggested something terrible happening to whoever was being recorded. Theories exploded. Was this Herobrine, Minecraft's legendary ghost entity? Evidence of a dark story hidden in the game's lore? Some players became convinced Disc 11 was documentation of an actual crime, somehow coded into Minecraft. Maybe a developer had hidden a disturbing recording as a creepypasta. The fact that finding the disc in-game was rare made it feel more sinister, like a secret that wasn't meant to be discovered. People created elaborate backstories. The disc supposedly connected to other mysterious elements in Minecraft, the Enderman, the abandoned mineshafts, the overall lonely atmosphere of the game. It became part of a larger mythology about Minecraft hiding something dark beneath its innocent surface. Except it wasn't a mystery at all. The developers made it, intentionally. C418, the game's composer, created Disc 11 as deliberately unsettling ambient audio. It was supposed to be creepy. That was the entire point. Minecraft has always had an eerie undercurrent. You're alone in an infinite procedurally generated world where things explode and skeletons hunt you. The discs added to that atmosphere. Disc 11 wasn't someone dying, wasn't a hidden crime recording, wasn't supernatural entities, just distorted ambience designed by game developers who wanted to add some legitimate horror to their building game. They succeeded maybe too well. The disc became legendary, spawning countless theories and creepypastas. The developers probably appreciated the response, though. They'd created something that genuinely unsettled players and sparked imagination. That's good game design. The mystery was just people wanting there to be more to it than the sound designer made creepy noises on purpose. Sometimes game developers just like messing with players. Disc 11 proves they're pretty good at it. Backyard Scarecrow screams. Late at night, someone posted audio they'd recorded in their backyard. The sounds were absolutely blood-curdling. High-pitched screaming that sounded disturbingly human. Not quite human, but close enough to trigger every primal alarm. The screams were prolonged, anguished, like something experiencing genuine torment. The person who posted it claimed they had no idea what was making these sounds in their yard after dark. The audio went viral because it genuinely sounded like someone being murdered. That specific quality of scream that humans instinctively recognize as distress. People listened and felt their skin crawl. What could possibly make sounds like that? The poster claimed they'd gone outside with a flashlight and found nothing. No people, no obvious animals, just these horrific screams coming from somewhere in the darkness. Theories ranged from reasonable to completely unhinged. Maybe someone was actually being hurt nearby, and the sound carried. Could be a trapped animal in extreme distress. Some went supernatural. Banshees, skinwalkers, demonic entities. The screams had that otherworldly quality that made paranormal explanations feel plausible. A few people suggested it was a scarecrow coming to life, hence the title that got attached to the audio. People who lived in rural areas had different suspicions. They'd heard strange animal sounds before, but many urban and suburban listeners had no frame of reference for what wildlife actually sounds like in the dark. To them, these screams could only be human or something worse. Audio experts eventually identified the source: coyotes. Specifically, coyote vocalizations that had been slowed down slightly, whether intentionally or just as an artifact of how they were recorded and posted. Coyotes make incredibly varied sounds: howls, yips, barks, but they also make these high-pitched screams that sound eerily human, especially during mating season or territorial disputes. Slow down coyote screams even slightly. Remove the visual context of seeing the animals making the sounds, and they become genuinely disturbing. Your brain tries to pattern match the sounds to something familiar. They're too high-pitched for human screams, but too articulated for most animal calls. They hit this uncanny valley of audio that makes people deeply uncomfortable. No scarecrows were involved, no murders, no demons, just coyotes doing coyote things in someone's backyard while being recorded on a smartphone. Nature is weird and makes unsettling sounds, especially at night when everything is amplified by darkness and silence. If you live anywhere near wild spaces, coyotes, foxes, and even rabbits can make sounds that seem impossible for animals to produce. Foxes especially sound like people being murdered. It's jarring the first time you hear it, but it's just animals communicating, not harbingers of doom or evidence of supernatural activity, though it definitely explains why people in pre-industrial times believed in so many night demons. The hum. Residents in certain cities started reporting a phenomenon they called the hum, a persistent low-frequency sound that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. People described it as a rumbling, droning noise that was worse at night, more noticeable indoors, and absolutely maddening for those who could hear it. Not everyone heard it, which made it more mysterious. Why could some people detect this sound, while others insisted there was nothing? The hum was reported in multiple locations. Taos, New Mexico became famous for it. Bristol in England had cases, Windsor, Ontario, Auckland, New Zealand. Each location had residents who swore they were being driven crazy by this constant low-frequency noise. Some people couldn't sleep. Others developed stress-related health issues from the persistent irritation. Investigations were launched. Scientists brought equipment to measure sound. They found low-frequency noise in many cases, but couldn't always pinpoint sources. The fact that only certain people heard it led to theories about individual hearing sensitivity. Maybe some people's ears were tuned to frequencies others couldn't detect. This didn't help the sufferers, who were being driven slowly mad by a sound many neighbors insisted wasn't real. Conspiracy theories developed, secret government projects generating electromagnetic fields, underground military bases running machinery, ARG, creating atmospheric disturbances, alien spacecraft idling in higher dimensions. The explanations got wild, fueled by frustration and lack of official answers. When authorities can't or won't identify a problem, people create their own explanations. In most investigated cases, the answer was industrial. Factory machinery operating on specific frequencies that carried surprisingly far. HVAC systems in large buildings creating resonance. Electrical transformers humming at low frequencies. Industrial cooling systems. Gas pipelines vibrating. The modern world runs on machinery, and machinery makes noise. Low-frequency sounds travel differently than higher frequencies. They penetrate buildings more easily. They can carry for miles, and crucially, they're hard to localize. Your ears can't pinpoint where they're coming from, the way you can with higher-pitched sounds. So people hear this rumble and can't identify the source, making it feel omnipresent and maddening. Some cases remain unsolved, which keeps the mystery alive. But most identified hums trace back to industrial sources. The challenge is that shutting down an entire factory or facility to test if it's the source isn't practical. So some communities just live with their hum, knowing it's probably mechanical but unable to pinpoint which machine. Not as exciting as government mind control or alien idling engines, just the background noise of industrial civilization, audible to those unlucky enough to have hearing sensitivity in that frequency range. Modern life has a soundtrack, and for some people, it's an annoying drone they can't escape. The Totten Pirate broadcast. Audio surfaced online claiming to be a pirate radio broadcast that had interrupted normal programming with what sounded like demonic voices, distorted speech, and genuinely unsettling sounds. The recording was poor quality, lots of static, interference, the hallmarks of old radio broadcasts. The voice that came through sounded wrong, too deep, too distorted, speaking in fragments that might have been words or might have been random noise. People who heard it reported feeling genuinely disturbed. There was something about the audio that triggered discomfort beyond just spooky sounds. The distortion had an almost painful quality. The voice seemed to be saying something, but the words were just garbled enough to be incomprehensible. Your brain kept trying to make sense of it and failing, which created this cognitive dissonance that felt deeply wrong. Theories about pirate broadcasts interrupting radio go back decades. Someone with equipment overriding legitimate signals to broadcast whatever they wanted. Usually it's political, sometimes it's pranks, occasionally it's genuinely weird. The Totten broadcast supposedly happened years ago, with this audio being a recording someone had made and preserved. Wow, paranormal enthusiasts suggested it was EVP, electronic voice phenomena, where spirits communicate through electronic devices. The distorted quality supposedly indicated entities from another realm trying to break through. The pain people felt listening might be the spiritual disturbance these entities caused. It was reaching, but the audio was genuinely unpleasant enough that people wanted an explanation for why it affected them so strongly. Broadcast engineers identified it as audio distortion, caused by signal interference. When radio signals overlap, or when equipment malfunctions in specific ways, you get these horrible distorted sounds. Multiple signals trying to occupy the same frequency create noise that can sound almost vocal. Add poor recording quality and degradation over time, and you get something that sounds demonic but is actually just technical failure. The Totten name likely referred to a location, or was just a label someone attached. No evidence of an actual organized pirate broadcast existed. More likely someone recorded radio static and interference, decided it sounded creepy, and posted it online with a backstory. The internet took it from there, as it does. Audio distortion can absolutely sound disturbing. There's a reason horror movies use it constantly. Something about corrupted sound triggers discomfort in humans. We're designed to process clear audio, so when sounds are wrong but almost recognizable, it creates unease. The Totten broadcast wasn't demons, wasn't a mysterious pirate transmission, just radio interference recorded by someone and given a spooky name. Though if you want to freak yourself out late at night, radio static and interference will absolutely do the job. There's nothing supernatural about it, but it remains effectively creepy regardless. The Bunnyman Bridge. In Fairfax County, Virginia, there's a railway overpass that locals call Bunnyman Bridge. The legend claims that in the early 1900s, a bus transporting asylum patients crashed near the bridge. Most patients were recovered, but one escaped. A man who'd been institutionalized for murdering his family while wearing a rabbit costume. He supposedly lived near the bridge, killing people and hanging their bodies from the overpass. Rabbits skinned and hanging from the bridge became his calling card. The story evolved over decades. Some versions had teenagers being attacked on Halloween. Others described a man in a bunny suit with an axe appearing to couples parked near the bridge. The Bunny Man became local legend, the kind of story high schoolers told each other before driving out to the bridge to scare themselves. People reported sightings, someone in a bunny costume standing on the bridge at night, figures in the woods, strange sounds. The bridge became a destination for thrill-seekers and paranormal investigators. Especially around Halloween, people would visit hoping to see the Bunny Man, or at least experience something creepy. Local historians dug into the story. They found newspaper articles from 1970 about a man in a bunny costume harassing people near the bridge. He'd allegedly thrown a hatchet at someone's car window and made threats, so there was a real incident involving a bunny suit and aggressive behavior. but no murders, no asylum bus crash, no serial killer in a rabbit costume. The real Bunny Man was probably just some guy, possibly drunk, possibly dealing with mental health issues, possibly just being a dick, who wore a bunny costume and harassed people a couple of times in 1970. The incidents were weird enough to be reported, but not serious enough to result in major consequences. From those incidents, decades of legend building created an entire mythology. The bridge itself isn't special, it's just a railway overpass. The mysterious atmosphere people report is partly suggestion. Go anywhere expecting ghosts, and you'll find reasons to feel creeped out. Trees, shadows, ambient sounds. Your brain does the rest. Modern Bunny Man sightings are almost certainly pranks. Once a location becomes famous for a specific phenomenon, people show up to perpetuate it. Someone puts on a bunny costume and lurks near the bridge because that's what's expected. They're not continuing a century-old killing spree. They're just messing with people who came looking for scares. The Bunny Man isn't real. Never was. Just local pranks from 1970 that spiraled into enduring legend through repetition and embellishment. Though honestly, some guy in a bunny suit threatening people with a hatchet is weird enough without adding serial killer mythology. Sometimes the real story is strange enough. The Roanoke Screams. Audio files claiming to capture the sounds of the Roanoke Lost Colony started circulating on paranormal forums. For those who slept through history class, the Roanoke Colony was an English settlement that vanished in the late 1500s. When supply ships returned, everyone was gone. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just the word Croatoan carved into a post. It's one of history's genuine unsolved mysteries, which naturally means the internet had to make it weirder. The audio supposedly came from the site of the original colony. Someone had set up recording equipment near Roanoke Island and captured these unearthly screams echoing through the woods at night. Not modern human screams. These sounded old somehow, distant, like they were coming from another time. The quality was degraded and eerie, exactly what you'd expect from paranormal audio evidence. Ghost hunters loved it. Here was acoustic evidence from one of America's most famous historical mysteries. The screams supposedly matched the era, anguished, terrified, like people in mortal danger. Some claimed to hear Elizabethan English words mixed in the screaming. The location added credibility. Roanoke is genuinely mysterious, so paranormal activity there seemed plausible. Amateur investigators analyzed the audio. They isolated different voices, counted what seemed like multiple people screaming simultaneously. Some heard children's voices, which was particularly disturbing given that families disappeared from Roanoke. The audio created this vivid mental image of the colonists' final moments, whatever those might have been. Except the screams weren't human at all. Wildlife experts identified them as foxes, specifically red foxes, which are common in coastal North Carolina and make sounds that are genuinely horrifying if you don't know what you're hearing. Fox vocalizations include high-pitched screaming that sounds remarkably like people in distress. Foxes scream for various reasons: mating calls, territorial disputes, communication with other foxes. The sounds carry far, especially at night across water and through woods. At the Roanoke site, with its historical associations and spooky reputation, people hearing fox screams naturally jumped to paranormal conclusions. The old quality of the recordings was probably just distance and environment. Sounds recorded from far away through trees and across uneven terrain naturally degrade. Add the power of suggestion. You're told these are ghost screams from the 1500s, and your brain fills in the rest. Nobody captured the lost colony's final moments, just local wildlife doing what they've done for centuries, making sounds that terrify anyone unfamiliar with fox biology. The colonists probably heard the same screams 400 years ago and were equally disturbed. At least they had the excuse of not having internet forums to overthink it on. The Haunted Elevator Game. In 2013, surveillance footage emerged from the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles, showing a young woman named Eliza Lamb behaving strangely in an elevator. She pressed multiple buttons, stepped in and out of the elevator repeatedly, appeared to be hiding from something, and made odd hand gestures like she was talking to someone invisible. Then she disappeared. Her body was found weeks later in the hotel's rooftop water tank. The footage went massively viral. Internet detectives immediately connected it to the elevator game, an urban legend about a ritual you could perform in elevators to reach another dimension. The game involved pressing buttons in a specific sequence, and if done correctly, you'd end up in a parallel reality. The last step warned that if a woman entered the elevator, you shouldn't look at her or speak to her, or you'd be trapped forever. Eliza's button pressing seemed to match the game's sequence. Her behavior suggested she was seeing someone nobody else could see. The elevator doors malfunctioning, staying open when they should have closed, added to the supernatural interpretation. People became convinced she'd performed the ritual, encountered the mysterious woman, and ended up trapped in another dimension or killed by whatever entity the game summoned. The Cecil Hotel's dark history fueled the theories. Serial killers had stayed there. People had died there. It had a reputation for darkness and tragedy. Elisa's death seemed to fit a pattern of the hotel being genuinely cursed or existing at some supernatural nexus point. Except the reality was much sadder and entirely explainable. Eliza had bipolar disorder and wasn't taking her medication. Her erratic behavior in the elevator was consistent with a manic or psychotic episode. She was likely experiencing hallucinations or paranoid delusions, which explained the gestures and hiding behavior. The elevator doors stayed open because she kept pressing buttons and triggering the sensors. She'd accessed the roof, possibly during her confused state, possibly while in crisis, and ended up in the water tank. The door to the roof was supposed to be locked, but was sometimes left open or could be bypassed. Her death was ruled accidental drowning, likely occurring during a mental health crisis when she wasn't thinking clearly. The elevator game connection was entirely coincidental. She wasn't performing a ritual, she was experiencing a medical emergency. The internet took tragedy and turned it into supernatural mystery because that felt more interesting than the heartbreaking reality of mental illness. The elevator game itself is just creepypasta, fiction designed to unsettle people. Nobody's opening portals in hotel elevators. Eliza Lamb deserved better than having her death turned into paranormal entertainment. Her story isn't about ghosts or dimensional rifts. It's about the importance of mental health treatment and the dangers of turning real human tragedy into internet mythology.